Hello everybody, Resonance here, and today I'll be giving you all my commentary on another expert game of Age of Empires 2. If you're looking for more expert games, you can find links to those in the video description below, as well as a link to my Twitch TV page where I livestream regularly. The video description will also contain links to videos on the brand new African Kingdoms expansion to Age of Empires 2. So in this match, Edie will be taking on ZhengHo in a 1v1 on the map Arena. At the bottom side of the map we have Edie playing as the Red Persians, and on the top half of the map we have ZhengHo playing as the Blue Persians. I ended up choosing this game because not only are both players extremely skilled at Arena, but this is also a Persians mirror match, which has some very interesting dynamics that I will explore over the course of this video. At the start of the game, both players will be beginning the game by building two houses. They'll be splitting their villagers between them, two villagers on one house, one villager on the other. They'll try to grab their sheep, put them directly underneath the town center, that way their villagers don't need to spend any time walking to go drop the food off, and then they will put a grand total of 6 on that, and transition beyond. Looks like Edie actually managed to get a deer underneath his town center at the start of the game, which I think is already pretty sick. One interesting thing to note is that villagers actually gather from huntable animals like the deer and wild boar a little bit faster than they do from sheep. They gather food at different rates across all the types of food resources, and this means that Edie will be able to get a tiny early game lead by being able to just gather food just a little bit sooner there. And those little things actually do add up over the course of the game and allow you to build sort of an incremental advantage. Now when it comes to Arena, this map is relatively straightforward, but there's actually a lot of complicated nuances at play here. Basically, the idea is that both players start surrounded by stone walls, and what this means is that these stone walls are almost impenetrable in the Dark and Feudal Age, so players will generally try and just go straight to the Castle Age, and then once we hit the Castle in Imperial Age, that's when the combat really picks up and things start getting intense incredibly quickly. Looks like Edie will be pulling this boar, and without loom, it's always tricky. Looks like this villager will just barely live, get garrisoned inside the town center in time, and we see some rock-solid villager micro here from Edie. We'll pull that boar straight underneath the town center. He's going to close this gap in the wall of the house immediately, not taking any chances of allowing ZhengHo into his own base. The idea is that in the Dark Age, both players are very, very safe from any sort of rushes, so what they can do is they can make a couple extra villagers compared to what you would do on an open map. They can go up at somewhere around 27 out of 30 population, or maybe they'll go up on 26 out of 30. And then, well, since you'll have extra villagers, the idea is that while you're advancing to the Feudal Age, because you have more villagers, they'll be gathering, and then you'll be stockpiling a lot more resources than your opponent. So going for those extra villagers, while normally a risk, here is absolutely mandatory. And then, of course, once they get to the Feudal Age, they'll be building their two Feudal Age buildings, usually a blacksmith and a market, and then going straight to the Castle Age. There are so many reasons why Fast Castle Age is good on this map. Not only is it extremely low risk, generally speaking, but also, a huge point of contention on Arena is the relics. The relics are very, very important, and since everyone's fast castling, it's much easier to actually take control of these relics because you'll be able to build a monastery and then, start making monks and then try and take those. And this is where a lot of the battles on Arena go on, is as both players will be trying to contest the relics. And the way the map is set up, Edie will be able to secure this one relic at the bottom of the map pretty easily, but the 4 in the middle are actually evenly split up. There's about 2 on ZhengHo's side, very close to his walls, and then about 2 on Edie's side. So both players are going to try and put down a monastery and then contest those as best they can. Because the thing is that Arena matches aren't always very quick. They don't go on particularly long, but they go on long enough so that you'll actually be able to generate a lot of gold from the relics over time. And it's a lot easier to contest them when you already are just going to have the monastery. One thing that makes this match awesome is that actually I'm seeing that both players here are indeed building a barracks in the Dark Age. Now this is cool. They know that the relics are very, very important. So what does this signify to me? Well, probably not archers. I'm assuming that what they're going to do is maybe make some scouts and or light cavalry to try and help them contest the relics, and it looks like we might actually see that indeed, as Edie's going to build a blacksmith and a stable. ZhengHo going to be not too far behind, building a blacksmith over here. Notice how, by the way, that ZhengHo is pulling off a lumberjack here to go build this blacksmith. Why? Because he's building it so close to the wood line, that way his builder doesn't have to spend that much time walking to just start it, and that way he'll finish building just in time at the same time as that stable. But it actually looks like Edie will be able to snag a villager here, as ZhengHo, the greed is real. He actually did not get loom, and He left that hole open in his wall, and I was talking about this earlier, how, like, Eddie wasn't taking any chances, and he patched this up with a house right off the bat. He didn't get loom either. But if you don't get loom, and you still leave that hole in front of your base, then, well, sometimes Eddie will be able to just sneak a scout in there and take out a villager. Those villagers incredibly vulnerable in the early game without loom. Since your scout gains 2 attack once you reach the Feudal Age for a grand total of 5, it's 5 hits to kill a loomless villager, and then boom, you're done. Okay, so this is cool. This is a little thing that's pretty obvious, but, you know, Eddie's making scouts now, but remember, you know, he had the stable and the barracks earlier, but he only started making scouts once he was already advanced to the castle age. Like, no reason in delaying your castle age unnecessarily. So he's waiting until the research has already begun to start producing scouts, and I'm assuming that these scouts are for map control, as Eddie has identified that, well, it looks like 4 of the relics are right here. In fact, Eddie has actually found all of the relics, and both players will be, I suppose, patrolling their scouts in a way that they can protect all those relics. Remember that the monks, which are a very, very prevalent strategy on Arena, are, you know, like, they can convert things like knights fairly easily, but something that they're very bad against are actually these Scout Cavalry, Light Cavalry type units, because they actually resist conversion. They take a lot longer to convert. Not only that, but the scouts are fairly cheap. You know, most players would rather trade 80 food rather than, like, the 60 food and 75 gold of a knight. So it's a much better trade in general, and of course the scouts and light cavalry do have an attack bonus versus monks as well. It's very rare that monks will actually be able to get the successful conversion off on so many scouts, and we have 3 scouts here for ZhengHo. It looks like Eddie has 1, 2, and actually that might just be it. He might actually only have 2 scouts. ZhengHo thirsty, looking for blood, as he's trying to catch wherever that monastery is, see if any monks come out of these bottom gates, because that's the relic, of course, that Eddie will be able to secure a lot easier. Meanwhile, Eddie patrolling up here, but since he actually only made 2 scouts, ooh, ZhengHo actually with the light cavalry upgrade, will we see that from Eddie as well? Instead, Eddie opting for bowsaw. He's building his monastery incredibly far forward. Now this is bold, whereas ZhengHo with the siege workshop already, and he's building the monastery in his own base, so his monks will be a lot safer. This is a huge gambit. Like, the fact that Eddie is doing this means that his monk gets to spend significantly less time walking to pick up these relics, because remember, the monk is slow as crap. It'll take, you know, 3 decades for ZhengHo's monk to actually walk all the way to these relics and then drop them off. Here's the downside of this strategy, though. If you don't get light cavalry and you're also, you know, you only have 2 scouts rather than your opponent having 3, then you might not actually get any relics at all. And in fact, this monastery might turn out to be entirely useless. I think that Eddie will swap the gather point back inside his own monastery. That way he doesn't actually lose any monks for free here. But this is an absolute disaster, as Eddie won't even be able to claim this, you know, relic at the bottom of the map, which is basically for free. Now this monastery has been neutralized. He can't actually pull out any of his own monks out of this. Otherwise, they're just going to die. And what is this new mode of rushing? Light cavalry. Oh, man. I love to see this. I've seen some of the scout play before, but the quick light cavalry from ZhengHo is absolutely brilliant. That's definitely a pleasure to watch. I like that he did something like that. You know, it definitely hurts his economy to grab that light cavalry upgrade so early on, you know, when you have so few villagers. It really cuts into things, but good news for him is it absolutely paid off this game, as he was able to clean up all of Eddie's own scouts and then basically make this monastery completely useless. But Eddie not one to give up, and now we're transitioning into a bizarre, fun arena game where, well, what is the answers to light cavalry? Spearmen, of course! Spearmen will make short work of these light cavalry. Like, the spearmen are so strong in Scout Cavalry, and the light cavalry upgrade actually doesn't make the spearmen that much weaker against this. And, well, you know, like I said, ZhengHo's got to walk very far if he wants to pick up those relics, and as a result, Eddie might be able to secure a couple of them, even though his monastery is already at half HP and he got zoned out for so long. These cheapo spearmen are going to be exactly the answer he needs, and Eddie throwing in 1 knight for good measure, as the knights are also very strong against the light cavalry, and ZhengHo realizes this walk distance is really far, so he's going to go put down another monastery here, also to sustain his monk production. Ooh. Both players here have a very different approach to this game, and I love it. Like, even though they're both the same civilization on the same map, we can see that the Age of Empires 2 metagame actually has a lot of variety to it. Doesn't always show up, but sometimes you get weird situations like this where I love the Scorpion, and I like the Mangonel here, and it looks like Eddie is going to really substantially delay his own siege workshop in exchange for a handful of spearmen and a knight. I wonder how much value this knight will actually get. We'll have to see. Ooh, Eddie gonna lose a monk to that mangonel shot, and the other one's gonna live, so we'll be able to heal up. Eddie's gonna make a desperate charge for that mangonel, but he is going to change his mind because ZhengHo has monks to protect it. If you get a conversion off of a knight, it's crazy. It's basically like you kill another knight, and then you add another one to your army, so that's some ridiculous value. Monks, of course, excel against expensive units like the knight, and they're very, very bad against something like a spearman. Oh, this mangonel's so slow. Will ZhengHo be able to pull it back in time? The answer is not quite, but spearmen do absolutely no damage. 3 damage a hit. Oh my god, that mangonel is so tanky. Eddie, with the saddest chase I've ever seen, is finally going to be able to clean up that mangonel, zone away those light cavalry. He might end up losing a spearman to conversion. Oh, but it's one of the severely injured ones, so ZhengHo not too happy about that, but at least he will be able to heal up that spearman. Not very good value, considering that the monk also has to, re-engage on all of its conversion. It will take a while for him to get up to 100% faith, and it looks like both players are going to back up for a little bit. Eddie going to need a mangonel, of course, to deal with the opposing army, and this mangonel will be instrumental. Can he get the shot off on those monks before these light cavalry take it down? And perhaps this mangonel was just a little bit too far forward. It will indeed die to those light cavalry without a revenge conversion. It takes so long to convert these light cavalry. JK, just kidding. Actually, Eddie ended up getting a light cavalry, and he will be able to revenge kill ZhengHo's light cavalry with his own stolen one. The Scorpion is very, very strong against the Spearmen, which is why ZhengHo did that. The Scorpion excels, of course, against any unit with very low pierce armor. It's good against Scorpions, it's good against monks. It's incredibly bad against mangonels, as we saw there. That's like the hard counter. Mangonel takes like no damage from a Scorpion shot and is able to kill it back with one return fire. And ooh, looks like this mangonel will live, and Eddie is making the smart play here. He's going to pull off 2 of his own villagers to try and repair that mangonel. Waste nothing. And both players going to back off for a little bit while they regroup. ZhengHo wants to be cool as well. He's going to throw in that patented one knight Eddie approach, and he's also going to make his own spearman. Unit pathing strikes again, though. The fat butt of this mangonel will force that knight to path around and have him walk all the way through the gate. If we compare relic counts, Eddie has 2. This one at the bottom is actually still there, and then ZhengHo will have the other 2 in his own monastery. We're going to have a mangonel fight here. Oh, Eddie gonna juke that, take a little bit of damage, and oh man, ZhengHo with a happy feat is going to take actually absolutely no damage. Eddie completely missing the second shot, and then ZhengHo landing the return one. But his mangonel is very, very exposed. Will Eddie be able to take out that mangonel before he loses both of his guys to conversion? The answer is yes, as the scout did take just slightly too long to convert. In the meantime, ZhengHo expending his army of crappy units. Gonna convert every single one of Eddie's weak little spearmen, and now he's a light cavalry and a scout. And, well, Eddie's looking like he's a bit on the back foot here. He doesn't have a Scorpion of his own to go deal with those spearmen, but perhaps it's wise to just make mangonels instead, because the Scorpion just dies so easily to mangonels. He's got 2 of them inside this sucker, so if he can protect those mangonels, then he can wipe out an entire army of monks with one blow, maybe even clear out all those pesky, pesky spearmen. We will have to see. I just realized that the music wasn't, it like stopped playing for some reason, so it's on now. Had to fix that really, really quickly. As it looks like, the spearmen slowly but steadily closing in. This monastery might eventually die, as funny as that is, actually. The monastery getting dangerously low on HP, those spearmen doing 3, 3, 3, 3. Or maybe they do slightly more. I'm not sure exactly what attack bonus they have versus buildings, but their base attack value is absolutely terrible. Looks like ZhengHo will be going for one of my favorite strategies. It's not quite as powerful as the Forward University, but I do like the Forward Market play. I think it's very, very cute. Now, he's just doing this because his villager was there building houses and repairing mangonels and stuff, so might as well, minimize the amount of walking time you have to do. Wow, that was actually brutal. That poor knight. Took 3 mangonel shots to the face. He's down for the count. And, well, ZhengHo gonna heal up his weak stolen units. Another knight coming out for him, of course. Neither player really prioritizing their blacksmith upgrades because they don't actually make a huge difference here. And, like, they might just end up getting converted and, you don't actually need any, you don't need like forging or anything to make a massive difference in these fights. Like, knights will still kill a monk in 3 hits, and forging won't change that. And of course, the extra defense upgrades are much more important when your opponent actually has access to ranged units, or you're raiding and trying to, avoid town center fire. And so in this case, yeah, the defense upgrades aren't going to get as much value as, of course, just booming your butt off, as both players are going to be plopping down town centers like no tomorrow. Booming up crazy. Another interesting thing to note that I feel like a lot of players do forget on is that usually there's like a pocket at the back of your arena base that sometimes contains like a small chunk of gold. So 3 tiles of gold for both sides. They actually have a very, very even map generation, with perhaps the most notable thing is that Eddie actually does have a relic for free, which he can snag whenever he so desires. Come to think of it, I actually could have made this a break the metagame, but this works too. I like the idea of sort of just like picking whatever expert games happen to look interesting and just casting those. And a lot of the expert games that I showcase will usually contain some degree of unorthodox civilizations, strategies, unit choices, or they'll just contain exceptionally well executed play. So it's just going to be good games. I like holding myself to more simple criteria, which is just cast good quality games of Age of Empires 2, as long as I can find them. Now, it looks like, ZhengHo, once again coming out on top with superior Mangonel Micro, is going to live with 3 HP, snag Eddie's in 1 return shot, and ZhengHo pressuring this monastery. This forward monastery is very aggressive from Eddie. It's a gamble, and, well, we're seeing the downsides of it this game really just come into play. Like, when the monastery gets too low, it actually ejects the relics out, and, well, that means that Eddie is going to lose out on some significant relic income while he has to pull some villagers off to go repair this. And, oh no, Eddie finally grabbed the other relic from the bottom of the map. Oh, but woe is him. He's actually not able to deposit it in that monastery, so he has to wait until a new monastery is built. And in the meantime, ZhengHo, up to the atomic age, will be able to start constructing his Death Star. And I'm curious to see where this match goes from here. If I had to guess, I'm going to say that I like, in this stage of an arena game, going for like a more archer range style of play, going for maybe bombard cannons and stuff, like hand cannoneers. That's usually what I would like to do in this case. Go for more of a value game, pretend you're the Turks, put on your best favorite Turks cosplay, go for some hand cannoneers, maybe you throw in some bombard cannons. One of the reasons why that's pretty good is that, you sort of force your opponent into building a lot of pikemen and spearmen and all that garbage. Once again, both players trading even on the mangonels. You kind of force your opponent to build all sorts of garbage infantry and these cavalry units, which are not particularly great against the hand cannoneers unless you have enough of them. I mean, knights are better, but light cavalry sometimes just die to hand cannoneers unless you have enough. So hand cannoneers will actually be able to just kill these squishy armies pretty quickly. They are very weak to mangonels, but that's where your lord and savior, Mr. Bombard Cannon, comes in. We'll be able to one-shot those mangonels from a safe distance. So I would like to see something along those lines. Skirmishers are a reasonable thought, but when you're the Persians and you lack Bracer, it starts to sound a lot worse. So I would like to see, oh man, we might actually see my playstyle today. That's pretty neat. Which isn't, contrary to popular belief, it's not always just boom and make trash, but rather it's do something, eventually get to the late game, and then I like gunpowder. That's what I like. I like gunpowder with some neat shields in the front. Play sort of a value game. You have to be really careful with protecting those bombard cannons if you go for that type of strategy. And that's a hand cannoneer. 10 points for ZhengHo. Very happy to see that. And well, the monks and whatnot aren't really gonna do that much this game. I think it's very funny to see the spearmen and pikemen in the same army, as well as scouts and light cavalry. Neither player still with the blacksmith upgrades, because I guess it really doesn't make a difference, especially if you're eating a hand cannoneer shot to the face. These things are so very good against infantry units, and I'm curious to see what ZhengHo will actually back up his hand cannoneers with. Is he going to continue? Oh yes, there's bombard cannon. Is he going to continue making pikemen? Is he going to continue making monks? Or are both players just going to use whatever monks they have? The fact that ZhengHo got to the Imperial Age first means that he gets the first couple of hand cannoneers out, and that is going to put Eddie a little bit behind. Or does it? Because Eddie's going to try and seize momentum while he still can and engage, because he has more knights. That's the critical thing, and he's trying to focus fire down that bombard cannon. Eddie's seeing dollar signs. He knows once he kills that, he's going to put ZhengHo in. Oh man, years, just decades of student loans, so much debt, You lose one bombard cannon, and that's all of your savings down the drain. Those things are very, very pricey. Well, Eddie's suicide attack is going to be actually very costly for him, and I would say that Edie actually lost a lot more resources there than he took from ZhengHo. Even though he threw away his army for those bombard cannons, like, he got the bombard cannon, but he lost his entire army for it. Eddie still killed some other units, but overall I would say that ZhengHo sort of came out on top there. Sure, the bombard cannon takes 38 years to create, so maybe Eddie's just trying to buy some time, create some space. That way, of course, he will be able to get to the Imperial Age himself, snag all those upgrades, and now the hand cannoneer production begins! Padded Archer Armor, the first blacksmith upgrade of the game. You don't see that every game, but in this case it's definitely correct, as hand cannoneers do need that extra bit of armor, otherwise they just die so fast. Still though, ZhengHo actually has no blacksmith upgrades of his own. He's going to be inching that bombard cannon forward. He's going to juke that bombard cannon shots. That one knight is going to charge straight for that cannon, as it should, but this is where the monks and the bombards and the hand cannons do come in handy here. Oh, the pikemen going straight for the monks. Honestly, when I think of Age of Empires 2, one thing that never made sense to me is how little damage pikemen and spearmen do. I know it's for, like, purely balance reasons, but I really feel like taking a pike to the chest does a lot more than 4 damage. Especially several of those. Like, this does as much damage as a militia, and this is like slightly more than a villager. I don't know. Pike sounds pretty painful. And it looks like, though, ZhengHo gonna overextend a little bit. A little trigger happy right now, trying to move in forward. But that +2 defense compared to +0 defense does make Eddie's troops just quite a bit tankier, and Eddie does have the home field advantage. When you go for a strategy like this, which I love, you know, the sort of slow push with gunpowder, you have to be really careful because your army is incredibly slow. So if you move out of position for half a second, you're gonna lose everything, and well, that can be devastating. Both players, of course, booming up in the background. They're making sure that they have at least 100 villagers. They build all sorts of town centers in the Castle Age, and a couple free bombard cannon shots will take out those pikemen. It's okay to lose those pikemen charging at the bombard cannons, but as long as you make sure that you still have sufficient pikemen at the back. The pikemen here are mostly just a meat shield, just because you don't really care about losing them, and units in Age of Empires 2 generally prefer to fire at whatever the closest target is, so if you just have something in front of your army, you can actually soak up a lot of damage. And we see that come into play usually in like Mayan mirror matches, where players will have the siege rams at the front of their plumed archers, the siege rams soaking up all those arrow shots. And similarly, the pikemen fill just a nice little budget meat shield role, but both players have an alarmingly small army size. Like, seriously, the army size is very, very weak. We're at 88 population, 231. Actually, ZhengHo very, very far behind. He got to the Imperial Age first, but at what cost? He must have cut quite a few villagers to get there. I guess on the flip side, a lot of Eddie's villagers are indeed idle, sleeping on the job, so it sort of balances out. Careful micro is really what decides these fights here. You have to make sure that your own bombard cannons don't get sniped. If you walk perpendicular to your opponent's hand cannoneer shots and their bombard cannon shots, you can actually basically dodge them entirely. So, well, looks like a conversion is going to come off here, but in the end, ZhengHo does finally get the bombard cannon. And that's what you really have to be wary of. In fact, those bombard cannons actually do, they do a lot of damage to those hand cannoneers as well. They can actually kill them in one shot, but they do area of effect damage too, so sometimes you have to spread out your units, and this hand cannoneer is going to manage to focus fire down a bombard cannon and get a second one too. And the real question is now, can Eddie safely retreat without sustaining too many losses? If so, this would be a fantastic trade for him. Every time Eddie takes a favorable engagement like this, he's going to pull even further ahead because he has a 1 relic lead. Well, it looks like a bombard cannon will get another monk with a cannonball to the face. And, nice split here from Eddie. We'll be able to go juke that carefully, and I think he might be able to nab a monk for free. And a second one! But he won't be able to get the third one in time, and he's got to pull out. Oh, the bombard cannon shot will miss, and this is one tense dance. One of these hand cannoneers has decided to defect to Eddie's team, and he will immediately die. He will be executed for his treason. Meanwhile, the monks are getting gunned down, and Eddie has a substantial military lead here. He has so many more hand cannoneers. Still, though, as long as ZhengHo is careful, he will be able to pick off so many of those hand cannoneers as they move aggressively forward. Eddie trying his best to catch those bombard cannons off And it looks like ZhengHo's also just going to ignore the hand cannoneer army and go straight for the bombard cannons. I think ZhengHo's going to lose all of his hand cannoneers here. Oh, but he just wants to get that last cannon. Will he be able to get it? This is a gamble. He will. Okay, so part of the reason why ZhengHo is doing this is because he knows he's at such a massive military disadvantage that if he takes a straight-up fight, he's going to lose anyway. So one way that he can survive and mitigate that massive economic and military difference right now is by killing all of Edie's siege. That way Edie can't pressure these buildings. And it looks like ZhengHo going to start ramping up production here. He is at the, like 80, 85-ish villagers, and Edie is at how much? Let's see. Well, Edie is about like 100-ish, I think. He's a little bit more than 100, actually. Yeah, so Eddie is just substantially ahead. Essentially ahead in many different categories. Well, Eddie gonna move aggressively forward. If he is a little too ambitious here, then that could be ZhengHo's chance to claw his way back into the game. He's down, but not out. And Eddie, while he's moving forward, he does kill that markets, the little victories. It's not going to be decisive enough. ZhengHo going to be moving his own bombard cannons forward, but he has to be very careful to not lose them to an opposing cannon shot. Meanwhile, ZhengHo slowly catching up on upgrades. He does have padded archer armor, which is very cheap and easy to afford, and well, the longer this game goes on, I definitely say that it favors Eddie, as Eddie will be, slowly gaining more gold from his additional relics. So, since ZhengHo is just behind, perhaps mimicking Eddie's strategy is not going to work unless Eddie makes a blunder or ZhengHo makes some sort of big play. Ooh, he does get sniped by that bombard cannon shot. When you're behind, generally you're going to have to try and do something crafty, maybe do some raiding, a surprise counter unit, or something that your opponent is just not prepared for to claw your way back in this, because if you're just mimicking your opponent and you just have less troops, then you're going to lose. So ZhengHo's going to have to think of something as he's taking all these fights. I like that he's focus firing down those bombard cannons, but every time he does that, he's allowing himself to live longer, but he has to throw away all of his hand cannoneers, and that means he's always going to be at a military deficit. So ZhengHo in a very bad position right now, having to suicide so many of his own hand cannoneers right there just to grab a couple bombard cannon kills to survive. Because those bombard cannons are what do the most damage here. They're a huge, huge pressure unit. Eddie moving aggressively once again. ZhengHo has an opportunity every single time that Eddie moves forward to try and pick off that army, make a play, out-micro him, but unfortunately Eddie will be able to snipe off that bombard cannon. Now ZhengHo in so much trouble. I'm not exactly sure how he fell behind. I guess it's like the faster imp. I guess he made some cuts in his economy, but there's a couple idle ones over there too. Yeah, it's just a smaller economy. Maybe he needs to make a couple more villagers to build up his military, because he's going to need the money to build up an equivalent-sized military. I'm trying to think, like, what would be a cheap, good ace in the hole here? Well, for one, ZhengHo is definitely quite poor. Very low in the money department. Maybe making a couple elite skirmishers is okay. He doesn't have the economy for it, but, yeah, you could make a couple elite skirms, maybe make some light cavalry, I don't know. You have to be conservative with your gold, though. Like, when you're going for a hand cannoneer, bombard cannon-style army comp, you have to be very conservative with your gold, so usually I like to supplement it with some sort of trash meat shield in front. Trash units, of course, being units that don't cost gold. Pikemen not good enough here as a meat shield because they just die way too fast to the hand cannoneers, so maybe you could do something with light cavalry, maybe you could do something with skirms, but those aren't really options for ZhengHo. If he had more money, I'm sure that he's thinking of all sorts of plays in his mind. Onagers would be reasonable too, but I guess they do get hard countered by the bombard cannons, so yeah, maybe he just needs something in front. But either way, ZhengHo's actually somehow managed to catch up on his army size. They're very, very close. Eddie has been raising a lot of buildings, but we're about to come up on one of the potentially last decisive battles of the game. ZhengHo has a very, very similar army size. Will he be able to take down Eddie? We'll have to see. Well, that's a great way to start the fight, as it looks like Eddie's going to take a ton of bombard cannon shots to the face. He's going to lose so many of his hand cannoneers for free, and look how paranoid ZhengHo is. Taking full advantage of that scatter shot, the scattered formation, and this means that he's going to take a lot less damage from the area effect, the blast radius of those bombard cannons. So I love the scatter formation. Eddie going to keep his guys clumped, though, and he's on the retreat, so the shoe's on the other foot. ZhengHo threatening a comeback. But Eddie wasn't born yesterday, of course. Yes, Eddie getting ready to apply the killing blow. He knows that ZhengHo could very easily win this game. All ZhengHo needed to do was to kill a couple of Eddie's hand cannoneers for free like that with some good bombard cannon shots. However, Eddie is not going to let this game slip away from his grasp. He's going to use the market, which I love. I feel like a lot of expert players don't take advantage of the market enough in the late game. You know, they obviously have so much to deal with while they're microing their troops flawlessly and building up their economy that it's easy to, you know, not take advantage of the market and sell your excess food and wood for gold, for example. It's just a great way to balance your economy in the later stages of the game. And, well, with these capped rams, the capped rams will be a way to close out the game, but the capped rams do die very, very easily to bombard cannon shots. Eddie's ace in the hole will be the Hussar unit, which is, oh yeah, another reason why I like Hussars, I guess, a little bit better than skirms here, is that assuming you have the economy to afford it, if you have extra food in the bank to kill, then the Hussars are something that you can just use to charge down at those bombard cannons, force the enemy hand cannoneers to shoot down the cavalry, and while they're doing that, they're taking, you know, cannon shots to the face from the enemy bombard cannons and then the enemy hand cannoneers as well. So that's why I love backing up my ranged units with some sort of cavalry to charge at my opponent and to threaten them down. Well, the scatter formation is going to be really, really good here, but perhaps not good enough, as ZhengHo is still going to take a lot of free hits. He has to find a way to nab those. I'm saying nag today. Nab those bombard cannons. Eddie gonna retreat though. He's on the back foot now. This is actually crazy. This game is very, very close. Score doesn't tell the whole story. Eddie also gonna try and secure this area with the castle. I think this is a fantastic castle placement because it protects these two crucial gold mines, as Eddie actually out of his back gold. ZhengHo still has a reasonable amount of gold in his own base that's actually safe, so that's very, very crucial. Oh, Eddie gonna get housed here, as he does need to finish that castle first. This is going to be where the new battlefield unfolds, as if Eddie loses that gold, then he is done. Here comes the Hussars. The Hussars actually still a very good answer to those hand cannoneers. Hand cannoneers exceptional against any sort of melee units, as they do much more damage at close range. They're very inaccurate at long range. Still, though, the Hussars have the added benefit of being able to absolutely slaughter any sort of siege weapons. They just clean right through those bombard cannons. And without the bombard cannons, suddenly ZhengHo has no answer to Eddie's bombard cannons. And that's why I love Hussars so much here. Now the bombard cannons are dead, ZhengHo's army is just taking so much excessive damage from those bombard cannon shots. ZhengHo on the back foot. This might be game. Also, I think it's funny that both players are using their siege rams to try and threaten the opposing bombard cannons, because siege rams actually do have an attack bonus, a huge one against all other siege weapons. It's not often that you actually get your siege rams up to a bombard cannon, but when it happens, you might as well take advantage of it. Kill a Treb, kill some scorpions with a ram, why not? And that was a masterfully played game on both sides. ZhengHo threatening a comeback for the longest time, but Eddie trying to turn around the game. He was tired of this hand cannoneer dance, and really, like, if you want to close out a game, sometimes you just have to make a play, swap your units around, think of something to break that stall, and I think that Eddie's decision to go for Hussars was absolutely brilliant. And it was something that I think that ZhengHo might have wanted to go for, but he just couldn't because he didn't really have the resources for it. If we check ZhengHo, well, okay, actually, no, he's filthy rich now, so he couldn't do it earlier, at least, and ZhengHo, of course, putting out a bunch of other archery rangers, presumably for additional hand cannoneer production, but really, I think the Hussars won the game here. They were a much safer way, like, you can afford to throw away 80 food. They're a much safer way of taking out enemy bombard cannons. Once those bombard cannons are down, then suddenly ZhengHo has no answer to the opposing bombards, which are also very good against hand cannoneers, not just units. So, yeah, Eddie with the game-winning play there. I love the stables. I love this defensive castle here. Is really like this. If he loses this area, it's actually over. ZhengHo was so very close to winning, to threaten a comeback, but Eddie not quite ready to let him win. So, GG, well played. Some very, very fantastic plays on both sides, and just a rock-solid arena game in general. I love seeing something like this. It's just a little bit different. You know, normally I'm used to players just, you know, going straight for a fast castle age, but both of these players know that the relics, huge point of contention, and I just like how aggressively they contested it. Seeing that early light cavalry from ZhengHo was really, really smart, and once again, the MVP of this game is really like the light cavalry scouts and hussars. They're definitely pretty good. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the achievements. As I need to flip off the music. Boom! Oh, it's playing the sad music. Oh yeah, because I was on ZhengHo's perspective, right, as soon as I went to the quit current game. Either way, we can see this was a very close game. ZhengHo a little bit behind on the largest army, but he was able to sort of mitigate that difference and get very, very close to Eddie's army count for a while. We can see just how neck and neck this game was because both sides did have 4 buildings raised and 4 buildings lost, as ZhengHo was threatening a push. And he managed to blow up 4 buildings before the Hussars arrived. The larger economy for Eddie, I think, was also a major factor in this game. Not only was the Hussar decision very good, I think, but also he just had a bigger economy. We can see this reflected, of course, in the economy stats. The food collected, wood collected, and stone collected is just a lot higher. And even though ZhengHo had more gold, which is impressive considering that he was down a relic, it didn't actually matter that much here. And, well, yeah, Eddie also with more upgrades. ZhengHo a little slower on the padded archer armor and the archer defense upgrades, and that perhaps costed him a little bit. Still, though, ZhengHo did manage to get to the Imperial Age 2 minutes faster, and that's certainly worth something. And the Castle Age 2 seconds faster, which is less substantial, but still matters. Just having a larger economy allowed Eddie to just research more technologies in general, so... In the end, though, ZhengHo actually had more villagers than Eddie, despite Eddie managing to get to, like, 128 a lot sooner. So ZhengHo finally did get his economy all huge, but just a little bit slower. And it looks like the extra 1 relic for Eddie, since it took him so long to actually get the 3rd relic, it didn't really add up to be that big of a difference. It was only 500 gold. But still, though, 500 gold is very good. Like, 500 gold, you can do a lot with 500 gold. You know, it's 2 bombard cannons, or, you know, it's a lot of herbalists, or a lot of hand cannoneers. Yeah, Eddie's timeline just shows that he was just a little bit bigger at points, but, oh, ZhengHo, very, very even, right up until the last battle. The Hussars come out of nowhere, and they seal the deal. Look at these engagements. This is, of course, reflected where ZhengHo had to send in his entire army desperately to try and clear out those bombard cannons. But that's what's allowed him to stay in the game the entire time. Since Eddie didn't have a reliable supply of bombard cannons, he wasn't actually able to apply the killing blow to ZhengHo. And at the very end, it all came down to a surprise unit choice that won the game. So GG, well played. This was a great game. I think both players played exceptionally well, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this one. I hope to weave in the occasional, you know, miscellaneous expert game, something along these lines, just into my usual flow of Age of Empires 2 and other game uploads. So, you know, I'll be uploading the VODs from the stream, videos of other games, and then some expert games on top of that. As always, your feedback's appreciated. Let me know if you enjoy this type of thing. You know, even though I didn't title it Break the Meta, hopefully it's just as interesting. I don't need to call it Break the Meta for it to be as quality of a game, I guess. And this is something that is a little bit easier for me if I just, you know, pick awesome games of Age of Empires 2, then I think it turns out to be just as good. Needless to say, though, I'd be happy to do some more Break the Meta stuff. It's just that sometimes it can be difficult. You know, there's a finite supply of me finding very, very bizarre strategies. So I like something like this, which is different, but a lot easier to find. As always, guys, your support's appreciated. Of course, if you enjoyed watching this video, one of the best ways that you can support my channel is just leaving a thumbs up. It takes like half a second. It makes all the difference in the world. And of course, leave me a nice comment below if you'd like as well. I really appreciate all the people who respond to comments on my behalf, and yeah, I do read all the comments that you guys post on everything, even though I don't get a chance to respond to them individually. And of course, if you enjoyed watching this video, I have plenty of other Age of Empires 2 videos on my channel, as well as videos of other games. If you like this one, you'll probably like those as well. I'd also love to have you at my weekly Twitch TV live streams. You can find the schedule on my Twitch TV page, link on the screen or in the video description below. So you just go to my Twitch page, you scroll underneath the video player, and you can find my schedule, which I update every day, so make sure you check it frequently if you don't want to miss out on a stream. I'd love to have you. It's a great place to interact with me, play games, and for me to just answer questions. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, wonderful to have you all around. Happy holidays, and GG well played.